Hey, my friends, welcome back to Nichols Make Sense. I want to start today by asking you something, and I hope that you answer before your brain has time to spin a story around it. Is there a junk drawer in your home? Not a metaphorical one, a literal drawer. Maybe it's in your kitchen, maybe it's a bedside table, or maybe it's that cabinet in the hallway that nobody opens in polite company. The one with the mystery batteries and the rubber bands and 3 pens that probably don't work, and a takeout menu from a restaurant that closed 2 years ago. No shame, because most of us do have one, and most of us are completely fine with it. We walk past it every day, right? We know it's there. We don't think about it until we need something out of it, and then we dig around for 30 seconds and we move on with our lives. Now, the junk drawer doesn't ruin our day. It does not make us feel behind. It does not wake us up at 2 a.m. But now, open your laptop, look at your desktop. How does that feel? I'm Diane Nichols, a business and nervous system mentor and the founder of System Sanctuary, where I guide solopreneurs to untangle the connection between their digital chaos and their internal state, because those two things are not separate conversations. And this is Nichols Makes Sense. And today we're going to make sense of your digital space, one small corner at a time. Here's what I find genuinely fascinating about the way we relate to physical clutter versus digital clutter. Most people can walk past a junk drawer with complete peace, but those same people will sit down to work, see a computer covered in files and screenshots and folders named stuff or new folder /3, and they'll feel their chest tighten before they have opened a single document. So the junk drawer and the cluttered desktop contain the same basic problem: unnamed things in no particular order with no clear home. But one of them triggers a stress response and one of them does not. And the reason is simpler than you might think. So we expect to find things on our desktop. It's a workspace. It is where we go to do the work that pays us, that fulfills us, that we care about. When we sit down to create and the first thing we encounter is chaos, our brain does not file that away as a quirky inconvenience the way it does with a junk drawer. What it does is registers it as a problem that has to be solved before the real work can begin. And so the real work never quite begins. Or it begins late after we have spent 20 minutes moving files around and opening things that we do not need and closing tabs that we shouldn't have opened in the first place. We talked in episode 4 about how our nervous system cannot tell the difference between a physical threat and a digital one. Inbox chaos sends the same stress signal as any other unresolved threat. Digital clutter works exactly the same way. Every unnamed file is an open question. Every unsorted screenshot is something that your brain is holding in the background, just in case it turns out to matter. This is one of the most common reasons a disorganized business feels impossible to work inside. It is not that you are inefficient, and it is not that you are bad at and it is not that you are bad at organization by it is not that you are bad at organization by nature. You are sitting in an environment that is quietly telling your body that things are not settled. And so your body is responding accordingly. So before we talk about how to change this, I want to spend a moment on why this happens, because the why is where the compassion lives, and I do not want to skip this. Digital clutter accumulates the way that it does because saving something is frictionless and sorting something takes a decision. And decisions take energy. So when you're in the middle of a project or a client call or creative flow state, and you do not want to, or a creative flow state that you do not want to interrupt, making a decision about where a file lives just feels like the wrong use of that moment, right? So you drop it on the desktop or in the downloads and you tell yourself, I'll handle that later. And then later becomes a lot of files. There is also something I've noticed in working with solopreneurs and honestly in myself, where digital accumulation has an emotional layer to it. We keep things because we might need them someday. We keep things because they represent a project we have not finished yet. And deleting the file feels a little like abandoning the intention behind it. So we keep things because our brain registers save as safe and delete as a small loss, even when the file in question is a screenshot from 2022 that we've never once looked at. So again, this is not a character flaw. It's just a pattern. And patterns can shift when we give them a simpler alternative. If you want to look at all the areas where those patterns are quietly running your business, the Sacred Systems Audit is a gentle place to start. It's free and the link will be in the show notes. So here's what I want to introduce. So here's where I want to introduce something that I think will genuinely surprise you. You do not need a weekend. You do not need a color coded system. You do not need to clear your calendar and reorganize your entire digital life from scratch before you can feel better about it. All you need is 15 minutes, my friend, once a week. And I know how that sounds. I know your desktop probably looks like it would require significantly longer than 15 minutes to address. But here's what I want you to understand about digital organization. The goal is not perfection. The goal is maintenance. And maintenance, when it happens consistently, is almost always faster than the recovery you have to do when it does not. Think about your kitchen. If you wipe down the counters every evening, it takes 3 minutes. If you let it go for 2 weeks, you're looking at a project. The counters didn't change, the food didn't change, the time required changed because the accumulation changed. Your desktop works exactly the same way. 15 minutes of consistent weekly maintenance is almost always faster and less overwhelming, honestly, than the 2 hour overhaul you talk yourself into doing twice a year and never quite finish. Not that I would know anything about that. And here's the nervous system piece that I do not want to gloss over. 15 minutes is a duration that your body can tolerate without activating a threat response. A 2 hour organization project can actually feel like a punishment because your brain will receive it as something to dread and avoid, which is exactly why it keeps getting pushed to next week. 15 minutes feels manageable. It feels like something you can begin and complete. And completion sends a very specific signal to your nervous system that you handled it. We're on top of this. It is safe to settle here. So that signal will compound over time. So the more consistently that you complete the 15 minutes, the more evidence your body accumulates that your workspace is not chaos, that you are someone who tends to their environment, that it is safe to create here. That is exactly the kind of shift that we build inside the Unclutter and Scale guide. It's a $27 guide that walks you through all 6 areas of your digital space with the same simple, sustainable approach that we're talking about today. And none of it requires a productivity overhaul. All of it is designed to actually get done. The link will be in the show notes if you want to take this further on just the if you want to take this further than just the desktop. Let me give you a structure so that this does not sound abstract. Let me give you a little bit of structure so that this doesn't just stay abstract. So the first few minutes are for your desktop, everything that landed there this week. You look at it once, you make a decision. Does it have a home in your folder structure? Move it there. Is it a screenshot you actually need? File it or delete it. Is it something you genuinely do not know what to do with? Create one folder. I call mine sort later. Put it there and move on. The goal is to just clear the surface, not to sort everything perfectly, just clear the surface. And then the next few minutes are for your downloads folder. This one is often the most avoided, and I completely understand why. It accumulates fast and it contains everything from important documents to things you clicked on once in 2023 and have absolutely no memory of. The move here is simple. Anything older than 30 days that you have not touched, let it go. If it was important, you saved it somewhere else already. If you did not, that is information about how important it actually was. The last few minutes are for one small area of your choosing. Maybe it's a folder that has gotten bloated. Maybe it's a desktop background because seeing a clean surface, maybe it's a desktop background because seeing that clean surface genuinely changes how your body feels when you do sit down. Maybe it's a client folder that needs a little tending. Just one thing, my friends. Start small, completable in the time that you have. 3 sections, 15 minutes, done. Here's what I hope that you hold on to long after this episode is over. Organization is not a personality trait. I'm going to say that again. Organization is not a personality trait. It is something you either have or you do not. It is not a gift that some people are born with and others are simply destined to live without while staring at desktop chaos until the end of time. Organization is just a practice. And like any practice, it works best when it is small and consistent rather than massive and occasional. The solopreneurs I work with who have the most peaceful digital environments are not the ones who spend 40 hours overhauling everything. They're the ones who spend 15 minutes on it every week, almost without thinking about it, because it's become a practice. The way that you might wipe down that kitchen counter, right? Before bed. It's just part of the rhythm. And the thing that shifted for them, the thing that I keep coming back to, is that they stopped treating organization as a project and started treating it as self care, because that is what it actually is. When you tend to your digital environment, you're tending to the space where your ideas live. You are creating the conditions for your best work. You're telling your nervous system in the most concrete and material way possible, things are handled. There is order here. It is safe to create. You cannot build a calm business from a disorganized space, my friends, but you also do not need a perfect one. You just need one that feels settled enough for you to breathe inside of it. So here's your invitation for this week. Not a challenge, not a directive, just a quiet door that I'm leaving open. Pick one 15-minute window. Put it on your calendar the way that you would any other appointment. Set a timer and tend to one small corner of your digital space. And notice how you feel when the timer goes off and the surface is clear. Notice what your body does with that. Notice whether it is easier to start your actual work afterward. That noticing, that small experiment, that's the whole thing. Organization is simple. It just asks for 15 minutes and your willingness to show up for it. I'm Nichols, and I'm so honored to walk this path with you. Stay gold, my friends.